loyalty in a tremor of anger at the meddlers, but he had never worn evening clothes. He called it a dress suit, and before the complications of that exotic garb he was flabby with anxiety. To Milt and to Schoenstrom, to Bill McGolwey, even to Professor Jones and the greasily prosperous Heine Roskukel, the dress suit was the symbol and proof, the indication and manner of sophisticated wealth. In Schoenstrom, even waiters do not wear dress suits. For one thing, there aren't any waiters. There is one waitress at the Leipzig house, Miss Ann Schwiegenblatt, but you wouldn't expect Miss Schwiegenblatt to deal them off the arm in black trousers with a braid down the side. No, a dress suit was what the hero wore in the movies, and the hero in the movies, when he wasn't a cowpuncher, was an ex-captain of the Yale football team, and he had chambers and a valet. You could tell him from the valet because he wasn't so bald. It is true that Milt had heard that in St. Cloud there were people who wore dress suits at parties, but then St. Cloud was a city 16,000. How could he get away with a dress suit? How could he keep from feeling foolish in a low-cut vest? And what the deuce would he do with the tails? Did you part 'em or roll 'em up when you sat down? And wouldn't everybody be able to tell from his foolish look that he didn't belong in one? He could hear ADT boys and loafers in front of the pool rooms whispering, "Look at the piker and the rented soup and fish." For of course he'd rent one. Nobody bought them, except plutes like Henry B. Boltwood. He agitatedly walked up and down for an hour, peering into haberdashery windows, looking for a kind-faced young man. He found him, in Ye Pall Mall Toggery Shop and Shoes. An open-faced young man who was gazing through the window as sparklingly as though he was thinking of going as a missionary to India, and liked curry. Milt ironed out his worried face, clumped in, and demanded fraternally, "Say, old man, don't some of these gents' furnishing stores have kinds of little charts that tell just what you wear with dress suits and Prince Alberts and everything?" "You bet," said the kind-faced young man. West of Chicago, "you bet" means rather, and yes indeed, and on the whole I should be inclined to fancy that there may be some vestiges of accuracy in your curious opinion. And you're a liar, but I can't afford to say so. The kind-faced young man brought from behind the counter a beautiful brochure illustrated with photographs of Phoebus Apollo in what were described as American Beauty garments. Neat, natty, nobby, new. The center pages faithfully catalogued the ties, shirts, cufflinks, spats, boots, hats to wear with evening clothes, morning clothes, riding clothes, tennis costumes, polite morning. As he looked it over, Milt felt that his wardrobe already contained all these gentlemanly possessions. With the aid of the clerk and the chart, he purchased a tradition-haunted garment with a plate armor bosom and an opening as crooked as the Missouri River, a white tie which in his strong red hands looked as silly as a dead fish, waistcoat, pearl links and studs. For the first time, except for seizures of madness during 2 or 3 visits to Minneapolis motor accessory stores, he caught the shopping fever. The long shining counter, the trim red-stained shelves, the glittering cases, the racks of flaunting ties were beautiful to him and beckoning. He revolved a pleasantly clicking rack of ties, then turned and fought his way out. He bought pumps, which cost exactly twice as much as the largest sum which he had allowed himself. He bought a newspaper, and in the want columns found the advertisement, "Silberfarb, the Society Tailor. Dress suits to rent. Snappiest in the city." Despite the superlative snappiness of Mr. Silverfarb's dress suits, his establishment was a loft over a delicatessen, approached by a splintery stairway along which hung shabby signs announcing the upstairs offices of J. L. and T. J. O'Regan, Private Detectives; the Zenith Spiritualist Church, messages by Reverend Lulu Paulhouse; the International Order of Live Ones, Seattle Wigwam; and Mademoiselle Laverie Sulphur Baths. The dead air of the hallway suggested petty crookedness. Milt felt that he ought to fight somebody, but, there being no one to fight, he banged along the flapping boards of the second-floor hallway to the ground-glass door of Silverfarb the Society Tailor, who was also, as an afterthought on a straggly placard, "Pressing and cleaning while you wait." He belligerently shouldered into a low room. The light came from one window, which was almost obscured by racks of musty-smelling black clothes, which stretched away from him in two dismal aisles that resembled a morgue of unhappy dead men indecently hung up on hooks. On a long, clumsily carpentered table, a small Jew, collarless, sweaty, unshaven, was darning trousers under an evil mantle gaslight. The Jew wrung out his hands and tried to look benevolent. "Want to rent a dress suit," said Milt. "I got just the thing for you." The little man unfolded himself, galloped down the aisle, seized the first garment that came to hand, and came back to lay it against Milt's uncomfortable frame, bumbling, "Fine, mister, fine." Milt studied the shiny-seamed, worn-buttonholed, limp object with dislike. Its personality was disintegrated. The only thing he liked about it was the good garage stink of gasoline. "That's almost worn out," he growled. At this sacrilege, Mr. Silverfarb threw up his hands, with the dingy suit flapping in them like a bed quilt shaken from a tenement window. He looked Milt all over, coldly. His red but shining eyes hinted that Milt was a clodhopper and no honest wearer of evening clothes. Milt felt humble, but he snapped, "No good. Want something with class." "Vell, that was good enough for a university professor at the big dance, but if you say so." In the manner of one who is being put to an unfair amount of trouble, Mr. Silverfarb returned the paranoiac dress suit to the rack, sighing patiently as he laboriously draped it on a hanger. He peered and pawed, he crowed with a throaty triumph, and he brought back a rich, ripe thing of velvet collar and cuffs. He fixed Milt with eyes that had become as sulky as the eyes of a dog in August dust. "Now that, you can't beat that, if you want class, and it'll fit you like a glove. Oh, that's an elegant garment." Shaking himself out of the spell of those contemptuous eyes, Milt opened his brochure, studied the chart, and in a footnote found, "Never wear velvet collars or cuffs with evening coat." "Nope, nix on the velvet," he remarked. Then the little man went mad and ran around in circles. He flung the elegant garment on the table. He flapped his arms and wailed, "What do you want? What do you want? That's $150 dress suit. That belonged to one of the richest men in the city. He sold it to me because he was going to Japan." "Well, you can send it to Japan after him. I want something decent. Have you got it, or shall I go someplace else?" The tailor instantly became affectionate. "How about a nice tuxedo?" he cooed. "Nope. It says here, let me see, oh yes, here it is. It says here in the book that for the theater with ladies should not wear dinner coat or so-called tuxedo, but—" "Oh, dem fellows what write books, they don't know anything. Nothing. Absolute. They make it up." "Huh. Well, I guess I'll take my chance on them. The factory knows the ignition better'n any repairman. Well, say, you're a hard fellow to please. I'll give you one of my reserve stock, but you got to leave me $10 deposit instead of 5. Mr. Silverfarb quite cheerfully unlocked a glass case behind the racked and ghostly dead. He brought out a suit that seemed to Milt almost decent, and it almost fitted, when, after changing clothes in a broiling, boiling, reeking, gasoline-pulsing hole behind the racks, he examined it before a pier glass. But he caught the tailor assisting the fit by bunching up a roll of cloth at the shoulder. Again Milt snapped, and again the tailor suffered and died, and to a doubting heathen world maintained the true gospel of, "What do you want? It ain't stylish to have the dress suit too tight. All the gents is wearing 'em loose and graceful." But in the end, after Milt had gone as far as the door, Mr. Silverfarb admitted that one dress coat wouldn't always fit all persons without some alterations. The coat did bag a little, and it was too long in the sleeves, but as Milt studied himself in his room, by placing his small melancholy mirror on the bureau, then on a chair, then on the floor, finally, to get a complete view, clear out in the hall, he admitted with stirring delight that he looked pretty fair in the bloomin' outfit. His clear face, his shining hair, his straight shoulders seemed to go with the costume. He wriggled into his topcoat and marched out of his room, theater-bound, with the well-fed satisfaction of a man who is certain that no one is giggling, "Look at the hand-me-downs." His pumps did alternately pinch his toes and rub his heels, the trousers cramped his waist, and he suspected that his tie had gone wandering, but he swaggered to the trolley, and sat as one rich and famous and very kind to the common people. till another man in evening clothes got on the car.